Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be introducing Chapter 8 with Section 8.1 on circles and circumference. Our essential question for the day is how can you find the circumference of a circle? The first thing we're going to do before we get into the definition of circumference is just talk about some key components of a circle. If you're given a circle, the center of the circle is in the middle, and we have a term called the diameter of a circle, which is the distance from one side of the circle through the center all the way to the other side. So essentially, you're just cutting your circle precisely in half. Now, the second term we're referring to is the radius of a circle. The radius of a circle, just like rays of a sun, start in the middle and go out from there to the edge. So if you're comparing these two things, the radius just starts in the middle and goes out to the edge, but the diameter goes from the edge through the middle all the way continuing to the other edge. So really, it takes two of the radii put together to form a diameter. If you think of it kind of in reverse, if I start from the edge and go to the middle, I have a radius. If I continue going to the other side, I then have the diameter. But keep in mind, any time you go from the middle to the edge, that is the radius of the circle. So it takes two of those to make a diameter. So the diameter of a circle is twice the radius. Take the radius, multiply it by 2, and we have the diameter. It works in reverse as well. If you have the radius, we know that that's 1/2 of the diameter. If you start with the diameter, divide it by 2, you then have the radius. Algebraically speaking, the diameter is equal to 2 times r, the radius, and the radius is equal to 1/2 times the diameter, or diameter divided by 2. In example 1a, the diameter of a circle is 20 feet. So we're looking at the entire distance across this whole circle. That distance is 20 feet. I want to know the radius, so what I really want to know is, sure, the diameter is 20 feet, all the way across is 20 feet, but I just want to know what's the distance from the middle to the edge. Well, if all the way across is 20 feet, that means halfway across must be 10 feet. Or we can use our formula above. Radius equals diameter divided by 2. So my radius is equal to 20 divided by 2. So radius is equal to 10 feet. And we do want to make sure to include our units. Now example B, the radius of a circle is 7 meters. We need to find the diameter. Well, our radius is 7, so that means that halfway across the circle is 7 meters. We want to know what's the distance all the way across the circle. Using our formula above, diameter equals 2 times radius. So diameter is equal to 2 multiplied by the radius, which is 7 meters. So diameter is equal to 14 meters. It takes 7 meters to get halfway across, so it takes 14 meters to get all the way across the circle. On your own's number 1 and 2, the diameter of a circle is 16 meters. So if you want to sketch this out, you can. Diameter means the entire distance across, and that's 16 centimeters. I want to find the radius, or I want to find just the distance from the center to the edge. Well, if the whole way is 16, that means that the radius has to be 1/2 of that. So the radius is 16 divided by 2, or radius is 8 centimeters. And on your own number 2, the radius of a circle is 9 yards. So now I have a circle. From the center to the edge is 9. I want to know what the distance is all the way across. So if the radius is 9, then that means the diameter is going to equal 2 times that, which is 18. So the diameter is 18 yards. Now from here, we can move forward to talk about circumference of a circle. The distance around the circle is called the circumference. So if I have a circle and I wanted to walk around the entire outside, instead of using the word perimeter to figure out the distance that you've walked to cover the entire outside of the circle, instead of that word perimeter, for circles, we use the word circumference, the distance around the outside. When we're talking about circumference, we need a certain ratio. The ratio that we're going to be talking about is circumference over diameter. Now, the cool thing about this ratio, this fraction, any distance around the outside divided by the distance across the center of the circle, any two of those numbers, when you divide them, will always give you the same result. Every single time, no matter how big or how small your circle is, when you take circumference and divide it by diameter, you're going to get a number that we refer to as the word pi. And we use this little symbol here to denote that word pi. And the number that this equals is approximately 3.14. So pi is equal to approximately 3.14. It's not exact, but since this number pi goes on forever, it's an infinite decimal, we just round it for convenience. Our key idea down below says the circumference of a circle, so the distance all the way around the outside of a circle, is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. But if you remember, 2 times the radius is just equal to the diameter, so we can also say this just equals pi times diameter. Algebraically, this is how it looks. You might have the circumference equaling 2 times pi times the radius. But the 2 and the radius, 2 times radius, is diameter, so we can also say that circumference, the distance around the outside, is just equal to pi times the diameter. These are the two formulas you can use when you're trying to find the circumference, or the distance around a circle. In example 2a, we want to find the circumference of the flying disc. So remember that our two options are c equals 2 pi r, or c equals pi times the diameter. You're going to choose which one to use depending on the information you're given. Now in this image, this flying disc or this frisbee that we're looking at, I see that the radius halfway across the circle is 5 inches. So since they give me the radius, I'm going to go ahead and use the first of the two formulas that I wrote, c equals 2 pi r. So from here, I want to know c, it equals 2 times pi times r, which is 5. Now I can't quite solve this yet because I do have that pi in there. That's not a number, it's a symbol for the time being. But what they tell us in the directions is to use 3.14 for pi. So all I'm going to do is say c equals 2 times 3.14 times 5. So all I have done is I've taken that pi and I have rewritten it as the 3.14, just like I was told in the directions. Now from here, all we need to do is get out a calculator, and we can go ahead and do the multiplication on a calculator. 2 times 3.14 times 5. I find that the circumference of this circle is, if I pull my calculator back up, 31.4. 31.4, and my units, as seen in this picture, are inches. Now in example 2b, I'm going to do a very similar thing. My two formulas are c equals 2 pi r and c equals pi times diameter. We can use either of these. Doesn't matter which one, it just depends on the information we're given. Now if I look at this watch face here on the right, I see that from the left all the way across the circle is 28 millimeters, meaning diameter is 28 millimeters. Since they give me the diameter, I'm going to go ahead and use my second formula, circumference equals pi times diameter. In doing so, I find c equals pi times 28. And they tell us to go ahead and use 22 over 7 for pi. This is also another way to represent that same number 3.14. It's just in fractional notation. In fact, if you plug it into your calculator, 22 divided by 7, you will see that the first three numbers are 3.14. It is very, very, very close to the estimation that we used in the last question, 3.14. But instead of being a decimal, we're just using it in fractional form. So C equals 22 over 7 multiplied by 28. And the reason that we're doing this is because now, if I put my 28 over 1, I can go ahead and reduce the 7 with the 28, or cross-cancel. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 28 divided by 7 is 4. So C is equal to 22 times 4 is 88. My denominator is 1 times 1, which is 1. So C is equal to 88 millimeters. Or the distance around the outside of this circle, all the way around, is a distance of 88 millimeters. In example 3, or on your own 3, I see that this little red segment is representing the radius of the circle. So the radius is equal to 2 centimeters. I have two formulas to pick from. Circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, or I could choose circumference equals pi times diameter. Since they give me the radius of the circle, I'm going to go ahead and use circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. So circumference equals 2 times pi, and my radius in this example is 2. And now I need to go back and just decide which version of pi I'd like to use. Either is fine, whichever one you're more comfortable with you may use. But since there are no 7s in my question, this 7 is not going to reduce with anything. So I'm going to go ahead and use 3.14. If in doubt, if you're not sure which one to pick, just always use 3.14. Now that you have this written out, you'll get out your calculator one more time, and we go ahead and multiply. 2 times 3.14 times 2, and we find that the circumference of the circle is 12.56. So C is equal to 12.56, and our units here are centimeters. So there are 12.56 centimeters around the outside of this circle. Go ahead and take a moment to pause the video and try out numbers 4 and 5 on your own. And on your own number 4, they give us the diameter of this pool. The diameter is 14 feet. So I went ahead and used C equals pi times diameter. For the value of pi, I chose 22 over 7. Remember, if in doubt, always use 3.14. The reason I chose 22 over 7 is because I know I'm multiplying by 14, and I know that the 14 and the 7 are going to reduce. You can think of putting the 14 over 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2, 7 divided by 7 is 1. Multiplying across, I find my answer is 44 feet. Now your answer might be slightly smaller than 44 feet, maybe something like 43.9, and that is perfectly acceptable. When we're using values of pi, sometimes our answers are not quite exact. So as long as you're very close, you're fine. Similarly, in number 5, the diameter here is 9 inches. Since the 9 will not reduce with the 7 in my 22 over 7, I went ahead and used 3.14. So pi times 9 multiplies to give me a circumference of 28.26 inches. That concludes our lesson on circumference of circles. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.